Thanks, Paul. Hi, everyone. I feel like a bit of a tough act to follow after John's piece there. So I'm Luke Marsland. I'm Project Delivery Engineering Manager working on TRU East Alliance. And today I'm going to be talking to you about the Colton Junction Tangential wiring works that we completed in week 52 this year, and then talking about some MVP OLE examples that we've employed on East Leeds Alliance. So for those of you that might not be familiar with the scope of East of Leeds Alliance, we're installing 25 kV AC electrification for the full route between Colton Junction, the existing electrification on the East Coast main line, and then we are running that down to Neville Hill Depot, just near to Leeds. We're also doing line speed improvement works to 125, closure of 5 level crossings to facilitate those line speed improvements. Overbridge reconstructions where we can't get electrical clearances, it's just too low for VCCs. Underbridge reconstructions, re-signalling of the route to improve capacity and to allow for the line speed increases. Platform improvement works, along with a new step-free access bridge at Crossgate Station. Culvert and drainage interventions, and you can see NOC 23 Alpha there was a new culvert that we installed on Project E1. And then we've got a new electrified train car depot to be installed at Shipley. And you can see the geographical limits of our project there on the right. That's okay. All right. Yeah. So just an overview of the TRU Project E1 electrification. So Project E1 introduces approximately 32 kilometres of new UKMS OLE between Colton Junction, like I said earlier, the existing electrification on the East Coast main line, and Church Fenton Station, along with the associated traction bonding and track works to support the LSI to 125 on the up and down Leeds lines. The OLE is fed from Colton Junction TSC, which was installed by PSU2, via Hambleton SFC, and we used 4 new circuit breakers and the in-feed cables there from the TSC, which you can see at the bottom of the screen, and then running them through a UTX and round to the in-feed switches, sort of in the centre of the screen shown in red there. So a key element of our works associated around Colton Junction. The existing wiring arrangement at Colton Junction dates back to the East Coast mainline electrification, and it was added for overrun protection on the up and down Leeds lines and Normanton lines only, as Paul said earlier. You can see the sort of wiring schematic there at the bottom, so the existing East Coast mainline electrification, you can see there, and then the East Coast mainline goes south towards Doncaster. So in the centre of that crossover, there was an existing section insulator, a BICC ceramic bead section insulator, which was installed to provide electrical separation between the up main and the up Normanton crossover, and that had never seen a pantograph and was only overrun protection. Section insulators, as we probably all know in the room, are a hard spot in the OLE, and are only used in low speed areas like crossovers, sidings, not suitable for 125 running. The other issue at Colton Junction was that it used cross-contact wiring arrangements at the crossover points. The cross-contact bar mechanically links the main line and crossover wires together, so they lift under the pantograph, reducing the hookover risk. The main line wire sits 20 mil lower than the crossover wire, and obviously it favours the higher speed route, which takes precedence. So pantographs running on the lower speed route will strike the lower wire. However, at Colton Junction, we couldn't do this because all the lines are high speed and therefore cannot be biased to a single route. The cross-contact bars are also known hard spot and have a failure mode of becoming detached, which can cause dewirements. So what was the alternative? So modern crossover wiring was using tangential wiring where the wires do not cross. No cross-contact bars needed, and the hookover risk is managed via the cross droppers. Cross droppers are a standard UK Master Series arrangement for turnouts and crossovers. The higher speed mainline wire remains 20 mil lower than the crossover wire. As the pantograph lifts one wire, which you can see on the left there, the cross dropper raises the other wire, preventing any hook over risk and pantograph horn contact. So here's the sort of existing wiring layout there on the top of the slide, and you can see that the existing arrangement used the cross contact bars, which is circled in red, and the section insulator is circled in blue, which must be removed because it's not rated for 125 mile an hour running. So the proposed concept to remove those items was to uncross the wires using the tangential wiring, replace the headspans with portals to provide mechanical independence, remove the section insulator and replace it with an insulated overlap, which is circled in blue. And obviously the removal of the SI increases performance and less maintenance for our colleagues. So as this wasn't a standard turnout or something that was standard in UKMS, there's no standard basic design which covers the 125 mile an hour double junction, as the mainlines and crossovers are also 125. There is a concern regarding excessive pantograph forces and the dewirement risk at a key East Coast mainline junction. So we knew that the design would be based on UKMS principles. However, dynamic modelling could be used and undertaken to prove pantograph forces were compliant, and the University of Huddersfield were a known resource for this. They'd already done some modelling for the TA on other works. So the first item that was required by the project was to create a scope to look at the various train types that would run through the junction and the various pantograph configurations and the speeds that they would travel through. And this would be based upon the indicative train service specification, or the ITSS, the TRU rolling stock sectional appendix, TRU rolling stock assumptions, and then the summary of compatibility for both the rolling stock and the infrastructure. And that resulted in us seeing that it was mainly Class 800s or the AT300 series bi-mode units, although there's still multiple pantograph configurations and speeds that it would run through. We also identified the maximum pantograph force that would be permitted as 350 newtons as per the BSEN 50119. And the project assumed that this would be a relatively quick modelling and verification exercise. The initial results, which you can see there, the model that's been created by the University of Huddersfield, it was very time consuming to model all of the pantograph variations running through the junction. Initially, we modelled the HSX 250 pantographs at 216 metre spacings, representative of two 5-car Class 800 units, with two pantographs known to be the worst performance rather than a single pan running through. There was very high forces simulated on the initial design, up to 1,350 newtons on the up Main to up Normanton route through the diamond. And some of the issues around that was that we had bridge gradient, a bridge in close proximity, and we're having to grade through the bridge. That reduced the system height, reducing the effectiveness of the cross droppers. We're also seeing a lot of oscillations through the junction area, due to multiple discrete features. So there's the insulated overlap, the turnout, and also the diamond. Other routes were plus 600 newtons, which was also unacceptable. So the forces were classed as unacceptable, and a revised design was required. So the design iterations, which was a really collaborative effort between construction, design, and the project engineering team, working together with the University of Huddersfield, looking at bespoke cross-dropper locations and arrangements, and revised registration and support. But the forces were still too high at 992 newtons, and the switch diamond still being the problem area, the up Main to up Normanton. So the final arrangement that was seen was, it was gained through a period of kind of 2 years of work from the designers, the construction teams, and the project engineering teams. And that resulted in lowering the wire heights, so no gradients through the junction, so lowering the wires through the bridge, and then fine-tuning the cross-dropper positions and the quantities of those, so non-standard UKS arrangement for cross-droppers. making the cross stoppers more effective. An additional overlap structure was included as well to reduce wire oscillation. So you can see the TTC there, kind of in the middle of the junction, just to reduce the impact of the rear pantograph. Refinement of the pantograph head, installing the carbons or modelling the carbons on the pantograph head so it just wasn't a flat pan. That reduced some of the forces that we'd seen. And then hogging one of the wires there through the junction, just so that pantograph didn't see as many wires at once and it was a smoother transition. Following that, all simulated pan configurations were now under 200 newtons, so it was time to build and test. The Colton Junction construction works, so they were implemented over 2 54-hour weekend possessions in week 35, 23, and week 52 this year. In week 35, the wires were lowered through the junction to remove any change in gradients, installation of new SPS and registration equipment. In week 52, the wires were uncrossed through the crossover, cross splicing, removing of the headspans, installation of new catenary wires to remove the AWAC catenary, which is a no maintenance burden, and then creation of the new insulated overlap to remove the section insulator in the diamond area. So post-construction, there was no AWAC or contact splices in the junction area, and obviously reduced maintenance. Post-commissioning, we were quite concerned about opening up at line speed, just based on that this was sort of new and novel technology, or a new and novel wiring arrangement. So what we implemented was a TSR of 90 mile an hour on the down leads for 1 week, and that allowed us at possession handback to monitor how the OLE performed through the junction using digital image correlation to determine the level of contact wire displacement or uplift. The measured uplift was then compared with the simulated values from the University of Huddersfield modelling, which was in 5 mil of the predicted or the model. The TSR was then lifted and 125 mile an hour running was implemented. You can see the camera there in the SES monitoring the down main line. So following the lifting of the TSR, we actually ran the test train through, which was the same configuration as Simon had pulled together for SPL on Midland Main Line. So there was a lot of collaborative work across the two projects to get this test train onto E1 with an instrumented HSX pan. So we ran the Class 91 not just for Colton Junction, but it was mainly for the new OLE to show compliance to the Energy NTSN. However, it gave a great opportunity to run through the junction at 125 mile an hour and actually get some measured results, which we could compare against the model. So the measured contact forces through the junction showed an F max of 201 newtons, and that was sort of correlates to the 200 Newton max that we saw in the model. Some other MVP examples on TRU that we've done to date are the 72 metre span lengths we were utilised. TRU's mainly straight track, so we were able to do that, TRU E1. So we have also done some lateral pile testing to reduce pile lengths in high rock areas using rock sockets. You can see there on the top diagram where we've installed a pile during the testing phase at 3 metres, and then we've put an applied moment onto the pile, and then you can see the lateral displacement. So that's sort of topping out at 25 mil lateral displacement at just below 250 newton meters. Whereas compared to the lower graph, you can see a much higher, where we've embedded a much higher moment is applied, and much less lateral displacement, so it's 25 mil. We also used the use of foundation load cases to reduce design effort for OLE foundations, reducing timescales from AIP to foundation installation to around 4 to 6 months. Review and analysis of 610 pile steel boss and studs to allow an increase over the historical 181 limit, removing the need for pile caps and transfer plates. We've also used VCCs in line with 27716, which is now kind of business as usual, and we're drafting a Regulation 14 against the Energy NTSN Clause 6.2.5, the requirement for a test train to run to measure dynamic behaviour and quality of current collection. So that's in process at the moment, building on the work that the Fife Decarbonisation project has done.